enough to take your breath away.
How's the coffee?
Looks okay.
Okay.
All right, it looks terrific.
Productivity?
I'm going to start my own business.
I wonder if they're thinking of going public.
A couple of hot shots from finance.
Efficiency?
Schnell, as they say in Germany.
One deal after another.
Yeah. There's no way they're going to do that. Hello, Pam.
You done the coffee yet? Mike?
I'll put it in everybody's diary. Do you need anything?
Companies like Saatchi's do more than just make adverts.
I think Saatchi is positioning itself as a know-how company.
Saatchi & Saatchi, with 157 offices now in over 50 countries around the world, clearly, potentially, has a finger, as it were, on the pulse of social trends, probably much more so than many governments.
Looking into the future, there are rumours that they're going to be moving into financial services, and they are interested in a consortium which is looking into direct broadcast satellite as well.
But I think we regard it as legitimate that we should be able to influence, let's say, the availability of media in this country.
And in litigation, they've bought a few companies, of which the leading one is Peterson, that just helps companies when they're in trouble with the law.
Well, the Hague Group is part of Saatchi & Saatchi. Saatchi & Saatchi have got a strategy to become, a large, multiple service provider to the largest companies. Politically, if you can't make that work, you could survive with this guy for a little while, but you're not actually going to get...
Many Saatchi-owned companies now use segmentation. At Hays, they advise companies how to hire and fire people on the basis of psychological types.
True that there will be some people who don't fit this present environment. Redundancy is really just one part. That's one part of the sequence of events. In particular, he's weak against this visioning element, so he's not going to bring that added value to the job. Over the last 5 years, I've observed that the British companies have done a really quite remarkable job of what we call slimming down.
Bit difficult, this.
Some of the largest corporations have lost from 5,000 to 25,000 people.
Sorry you couldn't work with the new guys.
You can't afford to have people who are not performing.
Saatchi could be helping your company sell one of its products. It could be helping you with your human resource requirements, your personnel and staffing issues. It could help you lobby in Parliament for a cause dear to your heart.
We're often described in the media as lobbyists, or even the hidden persuaders. All that means is that we present a point of view, but in fact our job is very much more sophisticated and very much more serious.
What did you call it again?
Sympathy sector. It's trade jargon.
That's this area, Minister, and across here. It's attitudinally quite soft, going by yesterday's poll results.
Obviously, in some cases, there's a clear conflict between government's intended actions and the client's interests, and there our efforts would be to try and change the direction of government policy.
You're still not through to the Prime Minister.
No. Yeah, that's press, radio, posters and cinema.
Yeah, well, keep on trying. I mean, don't hassle Montfort, but do keep on to Downing Street.
Posters and cinema.
Won't improve as the day goes on.
Can you read back and confirm?
Well, we were in fact involved in the process of advising clients, American clients, Boeing and Westinghouse, on the AWACS issue.
We no longer seem to have much control over our independent deterrent.
Well, never was wildly independent.
It was an extremely interesting campaign because what at the outset was a purely commercial matter did become highly political and very charged with emotion.
As well as working on the government, Saatchi's have worked for the government.
I think the UK public is more aware of what they've done for the Conservative account than for any other political issues. But yes, they are involved in Europe, in parliamentary affairs.
Saatchi's have marketed some of the most emotive products of the 1980s. AWACS, BP shares, Mrs. Thatcher. And so Saatchis have taken their place as part of the Thatcher ethos.
You feel very safe here, feel safety conscious. You know, you've got the fences around the outside and the security guards. You just feel safe.
Hello?
In the 1987 election, Alf Dubs, the Labour MP for Battersea, wept at the news that the seat had gone Conservative. He blamed lifestyle.
Yeah, when this place was the Livingston estate, I mean, the lifts were breaking down, they didn't go above the 4th floor, and no one would live above the 4th floor. I think it just shows how things can be transformed.
Well, one of the problems in Battersea has been it was an old population, an old working class population, and a poor, young working class population. Now, the new people who've come in work in the city, and they are young, in the main, single couples with lots of money to spend.
I've been in my flat a year, and it's gone up by about 30,000 in that time.
And in a sense, the articulate middle classes of Battersea are like large shareholders who know what they want from a council and get it.
I move with the times, with progress. I expect high performance.
We have a very aggressive sales policy. We've done this imaginative thing with the little pitched roofs, and we're taking some of the bridges down so that some of the blocks can stand alone, so that people have a little more sense of individualism and privacy.
They've taken whole estates, then they gave the whole estate to a property developer who then made them into luxury flats for people from anywhere but from around here.
They asked, why Docklands? He said it was just a feeling.
You've got to give people who want to move away the chance to do so.
And as you go around, you see the shops beginning to come back into use, and with lots of rather upmarket ones, which we're not sorry to see.
Labour built low-rise estates, rather like this one, so that the children could play more safely on the open spaces that you see here. The Tories finished the estate and sold everything off, and not one of them went to people on the waiting list.
There was a lot of trouble here when it was council. I think quite a lot of the local shopkeepers and people like that are quite pleased that we've come, not only because we're spending money, but I think there's less trouble now. And I think we will make an effort to get on with the local people. I mean, I belong to a local church and things like that, so...
And then, you know, like the old-fashioned children's building blocks, big triangles you stick on for a roof, they've put those on, haven't they? All in bright colours.
Doddington.
And it doesn't lead to it. You just...
It looks so...
It just looks repulsive. We felt like Legoland. We're bright green. She's bright red, bright blue, and they...
The reason that we're here is to discuss some hypotheses arising from a group discussion that we conducted in Battersea last week. The group discussion was amongst women from identical backgrounds who live in identical housing. They all live on what are or used to be council estates. They were all aged between about 35 and 50. Although they had voted Labour in the past, they had all voted differently at the last election. OK, tell me about it.
That to me is walking down Battersea High Street now.
We asked them to draw themselves in Battersea now and in the future. She's feeling absolutely out of it, and here is a Porsche, which sums up everything to her that's going on in Battersea. You can see here that one woman has drawn herself now in a cage.
I mean, my children used to walk down the road and call a white woman aunt, you know, and Auntie June and things like that, you know. You don't really see all that thing anymore, you know. The friendliness has gone.
Do you think there's any chance of it coming back?
Not if you're going to have one home buyer next to somebody who's sort of renting a council flat. The divide is too great there. And they begin to look, it's like they're looking down their nose at you. I can afford to buy mine. What are you doing? You're just lazy because you can't buy it and so on. Well, I'm one of these who'll be slung out because, I mean, I can't afford to buy. So, I don't know. Once they start privatising a couple of sections, the whole lot will go. So then we've got to look out for where we're going.
Where are they going to put them? I mean, everybody who's got decent council places and can afford it is buying, and I don't blame them. I'm one of them. But, I mean, where are they going to put them? All they'll be left is the rotten old places nobody wants to buy and they can't sell.
As well-established communities like these get privatised, each individual becomes an uneasy player in the lifestyle game.
I know someone who actually voted Conservative because they wanted to buy some property. as Margaret Thatcher's all for homeowners, you know, she thought it was best to vote Conservative, and that's the only reason she did. To me, that was really, you know, wasn't...
What I've done.
Did you vote Conservative?
I've always voted Labour in national elections, but this time I voted Conservative on the local elections. For the simple reason I don't like what she's doing to the country nationally. But for the local borough, I thought it was all right for the Conservatives to get in, mainly because...
The more sceptical people are of present policy, the more they will be of psychological interest to the government.
Yes, it is true, although it's rhetorical, that I was involved in the Conservative Party business here. We set out to discover how many people held particular ideas and what uncertainties they may have had about their own opinions, and also how people may be persuaded, perhaps, to change their views.
Focus groups are the raw material for psychological typecasting.
And I was very much, often felt like I was apologising for my existence. It was actually a choice, and I was all right being stressed.
We've built the studios to have one whole wall of one-way mirrors. The idea is that clients can watch from behind, so it's a bit like a scientific experiment.
Stress-related.
Well, if there are rivalries or antagonisms, that can be quite useful to you because it sets up some sort of confrontation.
I'm thinking all the time, what can I do, what can I do?
No, and it works extremely well when you're looking at people's attitudes to important social and economic issues, like the National Health Service, like abortion, like drugs, like nuclear power.
The first practical application took place in North America. It was in fact done by the government, where the intent was to be able to gauge the likely reaction of the population in the event of some form of disaster or another, so that one could sort out who would be running around shouting and yelling and who would be sitting quietly waiting by the side of the radio for news.
If we haven't been nuked by then, our health and how we take care of ourselves could be the most provocative issue of the 1990s.
I take my health seriously, and I'm careful about what I eat.
Now then, let's see how fit you are.
My teeth were weak, but his should be stronger.
No sucrose, and no dextrine. No flavoring, no stabilizing, just juice. No additives, no mess, no fun.
Well done.
The first group are the mainstreamers. They like to conform, will listen very much to the doctor. They will take his view rather than argue with it.
You don't know what to ask. Like when I feel better and I can talk about it a bit more, then I will go up there and I want a few answers.
Mr. Moore gave yet another clear indication that the government expects more British health care in the future to be handled in the private sector.
I mean, when I go to the eye hospital, I mean, the queue is... I mean, we've all got appointments, and yet there's about 30 of us all waiting to see, like, 3 doctors. You know, you sit there for, like, 4 hours. And it's not because they don't care. They just haven't got the staff, I think, to cope with the people.
Mr. Moore's speech this morning made it quite clear that when the review reports later this year, it will include some kind of active encouragement for people to make greater use of the private sector.
A lot of people are now changing to Bupa or you know, whatever, because they feel dissatisfied with the National Health. Surely those people and everybody else would be willing to pay to make the National Health, you know, what it used to be.
No, I haven't actually got around to it yet, but it's something I'm thinking about.
The group of succeeders, the men, I would suspect that quite a few of them will already be in private medicine.
Here as it is. So perhaps it might be a good, worthwhile investment for the future. There might not even be any National Health in 20 years. Not if a certain person gets her way, no.
She was treated in a Bupa hospital where her problem was diagnosed with a body scanner. You see, Bupa have priorities too. No one takes a profit. Anything left over from caring for their members today is reinvested for their future. Like hospitals, health screening centres and the latest medical technology. Most people choosing private healthcare join Bupa. Bupa. Britain feels better for it.
It's a bit flat at the moment. You can have a bit more fun with putting a bit of emotion into the first paragraph.
Yep.
All right.
Yes, in fact, it's very important that section isn't corporate in the sense of
petrol company corporate is doctorial.
Yeah,
I mean, the
doctorial.
Bupa
Ethical,
has to
medical
feel like the
professionalism,
doctor.
yeah.
I had a stomach disorder, stress-induced, so I was told in the end by the doctor. Too much tension. When there are certain things wrong with you and you don't know why, you tend to suppose the worst.
Research suggested that male clients can't bear to think of themselves being ill, so women are used in Bupa adverts.
This priority was brought home to them recently when Sue fell ill. She was treated in a Bupa hospital.
And he referred us to a Harley Street doctor because we said we couldn't wait for National Health.
To be sure of private healthcare, they began.
Not that strong, but just to be sure of private healthcare.
To be sure of private healthcare, they became members of Bupa.
It's subtle, actually, but yeah.
If health becomes just another lifestyle issue, being in the wrong psychological group could be fatal.
The constrained sector, the resigned poor and the struggling poor, some of them may well have, albeit minor, but chronic long-term health problems that they just get used to, that they just learn to live with.
I've got a bit of a cold.
Tranquilizers. I get all in a state now talking about it.
They're just a prop. The only thing you'll get out of that is a physically addictive problem, which you might as well just go out and buy some heroin or something as take those.
I think if you've got depression, though, you feel a bit ashamed of it. I don't know why.
Yeah, because it's not a physical illness.
I feel as though you're a bit
can't touch it.
inferior.
Yeah. Because you tend to think he won't want to hear all this anyway. It must be so... I
That's
feel
right.
so inadequate with my pathetic story.
They don't know who you are. You could be Joe Bloggs going in there. They've got too many patients on the book. You know, it's not like being a private patient, is it?
You can get an insurance plan, can't you? You pay monthly, doesn't it?
You've still got to find the money to pay
That's
it.
what I was just going to say. It's all right, all this talking how you can do it and what you can do, but if you ain't got the money, then you can't have it.
But when you look on the streets, there's so many people that have got problems and can't afford treatment. I mean, our country was marvellous because we had a good National Health Service.
Bupa. Britain feels better for it.
Pressure built up here, you get headache and pain here.
Tired, anxious, depressed? Did lifestyle segment you into a group of one?
Many times when you leave people to behave in an individualistic fashion, they will do things which aren't necessarily what they would like to do if there was some sort of collective coordination. For example, more and more people are driving their cars into London, and yet when you ask people would they accept radical measures to limit the amount of access of cars to London, and overwhelming numbers would accept really very extreme measures, total bans on cars on certain days. So that's an example of people doing one thing, and yet perhaps their preferences, if they were consulted collectively, would be for another.
In a way, Western society of today is unique, historically, anthropologically, whichever way you look at it. If you go back, you'll find communities where a large-ish group is the basic social unit. They feel a unity. Each individual feels good about themselves if the entire group is prosperous. It's unique, I believe, and very characteristic to late 20th century that the individual has suddenly become the basic social unit. That people feel that they've got to make it on their own, that they have to succeed by themselves.
You're absolutely right.
And the need for other people, the need for a social unit, is very much reduced and is denigrated. Now, how does that leave the individual? In a great deal of difficulty, in my experience.
Well, it's a game sport, really. For anyone sort of over 18 years old, come down to the woods and shoot each other, basically.
And we even have a fantasy question. Well, we say to you, who or what would you choose to be if you had your life over again? I mean, some people, for example, say they'd like to be a cat or Eleanor of Aquitaine, or, you know, it can be as bizarre as that. And it sort of gives an insight into the inner person and whether they're able to, you know, be in touch with themselves.
But the worst thing I've heard of is this thing which is I think called philo-napping, which is stealing filofaxes and holding them to ransom. It's a terrifying thought.
But there's more to it than that. When you look good, you feel good about yourself. You feel more confident. And you get
These people, trendsetters, style leaders, social experimenters, are supposed to be at the top of the psychological hierarchy. What they do today, we're all meant to be doing tomorrow.
I mean, Maslow hypothesized that people would, at the most mature, at the richest point of their life, they would become integrated, being able to cope with the outer as well as the inner drives and motives. In fact, the integration is there, but it's certainly not as he assumed or hypothesized. The integration is somewhat disturbing.
Oh?
The trendsetters are not concerned about social or community needs. They don't like to put themselves into other people's shoes.
Look at the state of this. What am I going to do?
They are prepared to break the law.
Thanks for the check.
Either minor offences or more serious offences in order to get what they want. In other words, they are inclined towards violence. I've said that they were racist. They have voted Conservative in the past and would vote Conservative in the next election.
In my clinical experience, what I see are more and more people who have problems with self-esteem, problems of identity. They have all the trappings, they have all the material needs, they belong, they get esteem from other people, they get success. But at the same time, they feel empty, they feel miserable. Sometimes they have temper tantrums, sometimes they show other signs of frustration. They cannot really enter a relationship at a deep level. They feel that the relationship is meaningless. They use the relationship for their own ends.
Just so long as you fully understand the implications.
Oh, I think I understand.
A society that is dominated by people with a problem of identity, by problems of narcissism, will not be, by definition, a caring society, unless the person can feel good about himself that he's so caring, unless you create a lifestyle that's, for example, a caring lifestyle.
The good news is that caring lifestyle is just around the corner.
The 90s, starting in '88, will be about what we've called usism, which is really to do with where are we all going together.
Tonight, we take a look at the road ahead.
And we've all seen during the year speeches being made, the moral high ground being fought over.
But it's not the creation of wealth that is wrong, but love of money for its own sake. The spiritual dimension comes in deciding what one does with the wealth.
Let's go surfing now, everybody's learning how. Come on a safari with me.
When you fill up at Shell, you're not just buying petrol.
The fact that the government in the recent budget actually gave a preferential price to lead-free petrol. The Bank of Scotland has just started issuing its own credit card, whereby if you sign up with the Bank of Scotland, they give a percentage to the NSPCC. It's all usism.
What a wonderful world.
The world feels a better place.
The bad news is the charity boom will be peaking in the next couple of years and will then go into a decline.
By 1992, which is in fact the next election, the pendulum could have swung again away from usism as to where are we all going together. Back to a period of I'm worried, I'm insecure, Europe's encroaching, half of the building societies have been bought by Swiss banks. I don't know what's going to happen next. Protectionism.
As the top groups of the hierarchy become more deranged, the theory is the rest of the types become more confused.
Many of the trends we see today actually reflect not a sophisticated, discriminating,
inner confident consumer, but rather someone faced with so much choice that anxiety has been created. We did some research and discovered that people were waking up to a realization that this private solution of shares and private pensions and this, that, and the other had some downsides to it. That after all, this private provision was actually quite tricky to manage.
High yield, low trust funds, timeshare eternity bonds, index linked to a gold-edged gilt complex.
The lack of compassion and the lack of attention to the wider interests of society do have repercussions, which are both personal repercussions, that societies that are more self-driven maybe suffer from more violence and more thuggery.
No.
The net result, I would have thought, of this process at a social level is that these people are much more open to influence from outside. And that, I suppose, is why lifestyles actually work, and work quite well for commerce and for the advertising companies. If I can beat the person next to me, if I can be better than them, then I am someone. Then I'm somebody real.
It's yours.
With stress, you become depressed, you become anxious, you become aggressive. And it's not the way to be if you can help it.
Dance a step or two. Advertising any old crap, cause any old crap will do. We'll maximise your market share in 30 seconds flat. Impersonating chickens and behaving like a twat.
I'm afraid I've only got this.
Oh my God, it's instant.
Don't say that.
Don't say that, Imelda. This is an advert for instant coffee.
But, Des, I'm sorry, but I thought I was playing a mature, sophisticated, intelligent woman.
You are.
Then why the sodding hell am I drinking instant coffee?
It's the instant coffee that even sophisticated people drink.
Oh.
It's looking great, by the way.